Hey everybody, my name is Michelle and in this video I am going to do my April reading wrap up. In the month of April I managed to read 6 books, which I'm very pleased with, especially because one of those books was more than 800 pages long. So overall I would say that I definitely had a very good reading month. I feel like the sort of semi-reading slump that I was in is finally over because I feel so much more motivated to read now. And of course it also helped that I read some very good books this month. Like I had a new favorite book, I had a very anticipated new release, I had so many amazing reads that makes me just so happy. And I really do hope I can continue with this reading mood and this reading streak, especially now that we're getting into May and it's going to be very busy for me because I have to write my master's thesis. But anyway, that's all for later. For now, let's just talk about the books that I've read in April and I will give you all my thoughts and my reviews. The first book that I finished in April was one that took me quite a while to read, and that is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Lost Hours trilogy and the first book is called Chain of Gold and it came out at the beginning of March. I have been quite a bad Shadowhunter fan because I actually do have an entire reading vlog for this book filmed, but I just have not edited it yet because it is a bit long and I was busy and it's just, I don't know, somehow I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I will do that somewhere in May. I don't know when, probably when this book release isn't even relevant anymore because it's not a new book release anymore, at least not that new. But you know, for the diehard fans who really want to see it, it will be there somewhere in May. I just don't know when. But that reading vlog will have spoilers in it, so I will still give my spoiler-free review in this video. So Chain of Iron, I enjoyed it a lot. I feel like it's very much like the Shadowhunter books that we know and love. It has all the Shadowhunter book qualities in it. It has a very diverse and interesting cast of characters. They're all very lovable and fleshed out. There is some demon hunting going on because, in case you don't know, maybe I should tell, but I feel like most people know sort of the Shadowhunter world by now. But in case you don't, this is the sequel series to the Infernal Devices and it takes place in Edwardian England around 1900s. And Shadowhunters are demon hunters and they, you know, have to kill demons and hunt them. And there are also downworlders, which are like werewolves and vampires and such. A very magical world. And this book is just no exception to that. I feel like, again, I had a good time reading it, but I was in such a reading slump that it took me a while to actually finish it. What I loved about it is that we saw some events in the Shadowhunter world that we had not seen before, at least not like we heard them described, we hadn't actually seen them firsthand, which is something that I really enjoy. What I also very much enjoy is the friendships between the main characters, like them hanging out and doing stuff together is just something that I love and I always enjoy reading. The adventure was still very good. It's always very good in Shadowhunter books. There's always adventure, action, a villain. But I also have to say with this book that maybe I'm getting a little bit Shadowhunter tired because at some point I felt like this book was sort of doing the same thing as many other Shadowhunter books have done before. There are a lot of things that you could nitpick, but that need to be this way because the book needs to work. But I feel like my mind is starting to nitpick more and more. So I'm not sure if I may be growing out of Shadowhunter books a little bit, or maybe it was because I was in a bit of a reading slump. I'm not really sure. There were some elements of it that I was, well, okay, I've seen this before. And some things were very predictable and some things were just kind of annoying because they were so, I don't know, manufactured, if that makes sense. But it is really hard to talk about it because that sounds like I did not enjoy it, which is not the case. I just think that maybe I should readjust my expectations from a Shadowhunter book a little bit because it is going to be predictable, it is going to be lots of the same, but it's also a lot of fun and just having a good time. I don't read that much young adult anymore, not that much young adult adventure like this. And maybe it wasn't really the thing that I was completely in the mood for last month and the beginning of this month. So I did end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars because I've given a lot of Shadowhunter books 5 out of 5 stars in the past, but with this one it just wasn't completely up there. But still, there's much to love about this book, there's much going on, so it's not like I hate it, but yeah. Maybe if you have read it, you should watch my spoiler reading vlog once that comes out and I can give more thoughts about it. I'm not sure. I don't really know what I've said during that reading vlog anymore. It has been a while. But yeah, fun, enjoyable, but not the best ever, I guess. That's sort of my review. Next up, I finished a book that was a reread, and it's probably one that you've heard about recently because it is very much in demand and popular right now because of the recent Netflix adaptation. And that is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. This book takes place in the so-called Grisha-verse, a fantasy world with like different countries and such. But in this world there are also people who are called Grisha who have special powers. They can have powers over summoning light, or they can be healers or things like that. And also what is central to the story is that in the middle of the country of Ravka there is this giant black sort of thing happening that is called the Fall, and that is very dangerous. At the beginning of the book we have our main character named Alina who thinks she's very normal, but then it turns out that she's actually a sun summoner, which is a very rare type of Grisha. Then throughout the trilogy much more happens. It is definitely like, that's not just the entire story, that's only the beginning. And I reread this in anticipation of the Netflix adaptation because I did finish my reread of Shadow and Bone before I started watching the Netflix show. I have read it before, but I looked back and it was in 2016, so it was 5 years since I read it. So I think it was very good that I did a reread because, oh my god, I had forgotten a lot. At the time I really enjoyed Shadow and Bone, and this time around I still did. This time around I listened to the audiobook, but I also still agree on my initial thoughts, and that is that this book is so basic YA. It really follows the template of a YA trilogy, at least the first book, so well. There are so many tropes that people have talked about, so many things. It is not, I don't think this book offers a lot of unique things apart from the Grisha magic system. And very often people prefer the Six of Crows duology, which also takes place in this same universe. And I can see why, because the Six of Crows series definitely has a lot more newness to it, whilst this book is just your basic fantasy YA series. And the thing is, I feel like this book can be a lot of fun and it can be very enjoyable, but you have to be aware of what kind of book it is. If you're expecting something mind-blowing and new, this book is not going to be it. It's very much a product of when it was published, and I actually don't know when it was published, but I feel like it was more around the time of the popularity of those types of series. And with my reread this time around, I had lots of fun listening to it. You know, it was perfectly fine. I actually think that even though it is very basic, it is something that I enjoy very much, because the first time that I read it, I was exactly in the right reading mood for it. And this time I was also in the right reading mood for it, and also I knew exactly what kind of book to expect. So I think with Shadow and Bone, that is very much the case. You have to know what to expect. I also think that actually the Netflix series had a lot of improvements over the book, but there's also a lot in the book that is very enjoyable. So like, if you have watched the Netflix series and you want to read the book now, I can very much recommend it. Just know what kind of book it is. So, you know, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I think it's actually quite an enjoyable young adult book. I don't think there's lots wrong with it. It's just not very unique or mind-blowing or something completely different, but it just does all the YA things so well. And to follow up with that, I also finished the second book in the series, which is Siege and Storm. For this one, I have very much the exact same thoughts as with the first book, like same rating, same thoughts. It's just a continuation of the story, again with lots of tropes, lots of YA storylines. There are some very fun characters in this one. There are some new introductions that I really enjoy. So overall, I cannot wait for the Netflix show and then season 2 to adapt this book. I don't know if it's actually already renewed for a second season, but if it is, it's going to be so much fun. Again, fun book, fun second book, also 4 out of 5 stars, maybe 3.5 out of 5 stars. Nothing special, but I had a really good time listening to the audiobook. And then next up, I have a book that is now one of my new all-time favorites, and one that you might already know if you have watched my reading vlog of it, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanigihara. This book follows the lives of 4 college roommates throughout the years and throughout basically, you know, their lives and what they are doing. And most central to the story is one of them, and that is Jude, and he has a very mysterious but traumatic past. And throughout the book you learn more about that, and you learn more about the other characters and what is happening and why things are happening. And that is kind of the idea. And also this book is 800 pages long. It is massive, but somehow I managed to finish it in about a week and a half. So if you have not watched my reading vlog, I would actually recommend you do, because I give a review in that video as well, and also I cry a lot. I wasn't sure if this book was going to make me cry, because A Little Life is sort of known for being very sad and very tragic, and that lots of people have to cry when they read it. I can already tell you I was no exception. I rarely cry because of books, like that almost never happens, and that was why I was a little bit skeptical beforehand. But I ended up sobbing and crying, and whew, it was a very, very intense experience. I really enjoyed A Little Life because I think the writing style is just amazing and so well done, and it really grabs you and sucks you into the story. All the characters are so interesting to read about, and there's so much, and it never ends. It is just everything and just wow. But what I will also say is that this book covers a lot of very intense and traumatic topics. So I feel like if you want to read it, you should definitely be aware of that. And that it's very advisable to be prepared for that and to see if this is something that you think is alright for you, because I can understand that not everybody will like be completely okay with that, because there is a lot. Like, this book is intense. There is a lot. However, for me personally, I didn't really mind that. I actually love to read about topics like that, because I feel like there are a lot of very important themes, and I feel like it was very raw, but also, you know, things like this happen, and it's just, it really grabbed my emotions, but in a good way, I guess. Yeah, it was sort of, this book was torture, but good torture. Like, it was very heavy on my emotions, and once I finished it, I was like, I was upset for the rest of the day. I felt so weird and just, wow, it was so over my mind, and yeah, many thoughts. But again, I feel like I'm rambling now, because it's very hard to capture this book with a very coherent review. At least I feel like that's the case for me right now. It's very good. It is long, but it didn't feel that long to me. I enjoyed it so much. But again, really watch that video if you want to hear more about it. And yeah, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, because I'm in love with it. It's just wow. Next up, I finished a very anticipated release of mine that actually is not published yet, but it will be published at the end of May, and that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I got a NetGalley arc for this. That's how I was able to read it, which I was so pleased with, because wow, like, Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors. I love The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you know me a little bit, if you have watched any other video on this channel, then you know how often I talk about that book and how much I love it. And now I had another of her books, a new one, a new release, and it was just so exciting. So Malibu Rising is about 4 siblings, the Riva siblings, and they are the children of Mick Riva, who was a minor character in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The book actually takes place over the span of 24 hours, and it's about the annual Riva party. And at the beginning you are told that the party will end in the house burning down. This is not a spoiler, this is something you get told at the beginning. Like, that is something you're working towards. And then there are the 4 main characters who are siblings, and especially Nina Riva is the main character, if that makes sense. But there are also many other minor characters, side characters, many little stories. And of course it all takes place in Malibu at the beach, which is just an amazing setting. So this book and this review, I'm not going to talk about it for too long right now, because I'm actually going to make a separate review video for Malibu Rising, which will be spoiler free, but I will upload that nearer to the release date, so that if you're thinking of buying it, then you have a bit more of, you know, a coherent overview, because I have lots and lots of thoughts about it. Yeah, many thoughts that if I all share them right now, this video will be way too long. So it deserves its own video. But of course I will not leave you in suspense because I think that is mean. I'm not going to like not give any thoughts on it. I'm definitely going to give you like small review right now, just very quickly. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, maybe like 4.25 out of 5 stars if we're going to be specific. It is another brilliant Taylor Jenkins Reid book. It has the same quality of writing, the same quality of characters. It does something different because it's 24 hours instead of multiple decades, as is the case with, for example, Evelyn Hugo. It is very atmospheric because of the beach and the characters are interesting, and I read it very quickly because it is one of those books that you cannot put down. But I also have two little points of critique, and that is one, that there are a lot of characters, which means that not everybody gets the time and attention that I think they deserve because there's just not enough time in the book. And 2, that I felt like the ending was a bit abrupt and a bit quick. I felt like it needed more from the ending. But those 2 points of critique definitely do not mean that the book was bad. I think it was still very good, but they do mean that it's still not a 5-star read as Evelyn Hugo was for me, because Evelyn Hugo was just so perfect, and so far this one has not topped that, if that makes sense. Which was also the case for Daisy Jones and the Six, so it's like, I think that's definitely a personal preference. I think that it really depends on what your reading preferences are, and for me it's just Evelyn Hugo. But still a very good book, one that I very much enjoyed, and one that I think is especially suitable to read during the summer because of the atmosphere. And also there are some references to Evelyn Hugo characters and Evelyn Hugo names in the book because it takes place in the same universe, and every time when there was one of those references I got so happy because I understood it, and that made me so happy. So yeah, 4.25 out of 5 stars. Yes, I think that is a good rating, and yeah, I will talk about it more in another video soon. And then the last book that I finished in April was a Dutch book by a Dutch author, and it's called Noorderlicht by Mariska Overman, which means Northern Lights, and it's about 4 people who go on this boat trip in Norway, and they have decided that together they want to kill somebody, but they don't know who they want to kill. So this book is not about who is the murderer, but it's about who is the victim. This book was gifted to me by the publishing company, so I was very happy with that, but I have to say that this book wasn't really all that great in my opinion. I think the premise was interesting, and I also think that it definitely gets bonus points for the atmosphere and the setting because it takes place in Norway on a boat trip, and they are seeing like whales and the Northern Lights, and it looks so beautiful, and it really made me want to go on one of those trips as well. But apart from that, these 4 people want to kill somebody, and their motives for that are questionable to say the least. It is very weird, and I feel like it's just being weird for weird's sake. Like, look at this, look how weird these characters are. I feel like they're trying to be very philosophical about it, but it doesn't really work for me. I still think that the motivations just no, don't really get it. Also, this book is weirdly detailed. Like, we get details about them going to the toilet, and like when one girl is burping multiple times throughout the book, like she tells about it every time. I don't need to know every time you burp. Like, that is not something that I'm looking forward to read in a book. I mean, it is something different, but And there were also so many detailed descriptions of things like that, daily things about them eating breakfast or such that had nothing to do with the story. And the ending was even more weird, so no, I really was not impressed with it, and I have to say that I'm going to give it 2 out of 5 stars. To summarize, the premise was interesting, the setting was good, but the characters and the plot were just really not that good. It just did not make sense to me at all. And I don't think this book is as clever as it thinks it is. I feel like this book is trying to be something, but it's not succeeding at it, which is a shame, but no. Not a winner for me, but who knows, maybe somebody else will really enjoy it. Okay, so that was it for my April reading wrap up, and I really do hope you have enjoyed it. I definitely had a kind of weird month when it comes to reading, like so many different kinds of books and so many different kinds of, so many thoughts that I had on it. Now that I'm talking about them, it feels even, I don't know, a bit weird, but in a good way. I was very happy with most of the books that I've read. And again, I'm mostly very happy to be back into the reading mood again and to be reviewing like this again, because I feel like I finally have so many more thoughts on the books that I'm reading, which is nice because that is why I like reading. And I just, yeah, really nice. Hope it will continue in May. But for now, again, this was it for this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, whatever. As always, I would really appreciate that. And it would also really support my channel, so thank you if you do that. It really means a lot to me. And then hopefully I will see you again very soon in one of my next videos. And until then, bye!